Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Can you please move in front? Move in front. Use these chairs. Please come forward. Use the chairs in front. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So good afternoon. My name is Dr. Mariam Swale from the Office of Partnership, Research and Innovation, and I'm also the project lead of the Ocean Climate Innovation Hub. And we have special guests from the Australian Embassy, and we'll start the session. So I can ask who is going to pray for us? Anyone who is willing to pray for us today? A volunteer? Yes, thank you.
Let's all rise for a prayer. Let's all rise. Okay, we are praying. Father Almighty, we do thank you for this day. As we want to start our meeting, may you start it with us and finish with us. Through Christ our Lord Jesus, trusting and believing. Amen.
Thank you so much. So we are going to just have one stanza of the national anthem, and then we proceed with the program. Okay, thank you so much. Have a seat. Thank you. So we'll start with our Vice Chancellor, who will welcome our guests.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Okay, today we are privileged to have a very, very important marine scientist who wants to talk about the issues of the blue economy. As you know, this is what it will be a very, very interesting topic, but for now, allow me to introduce the first, Chris. Chris is the deputy head of mission, Australian Embassy, isn't it? At the Australian Embassy in Oslo. You are also the Okay, from the Australian Embassy. We are also privileged in having now our main visitor, Dr. Russell. He was saying his name has been anglicized, so it is Reichelt. It will be Reichelt, but I think in German it's supposed to be Reichelt. He's a renowned marine scientist and also a policy expert with extensive experience in ocean conservation and management. He has served in very many areas and portfolios. He has served as chairman and CEO of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority. He has been the CEO of the Australian Institute of Marine Sciences. He's currently also the chair of the Fisheries. He served also as the chair of Fisheries Research and Development Corporation. Currently, he is the Australian Prime Minister's representatives to the high-level panel of sustainable ocean economy. He's also the chair of the New South Wales Marine Estate Management Authority. He also wears another hat as a board member of both the Australian Climate Change Authority and the Great Barrier Reef Foundation. Dr. Russell also is an adjunct professor at Queensland's University of Technology and the University of Queensland. He was appointed an officer of the Order of Australia in recognition of his contributions to marine science and climate policy. Today, he's here at Technical University of Mombasa, and I was telling him that we pride ourselves to be the only university at sea level, and he's here to give us a talk, which will be a very, very interesting presentation. So our guests who are here, it is indeed an honor and privilege to welcome you all to Technical University of Mombasa for this significant occasion. Today, we are delighted to host Dr. Russell, the Australian Prime Minister's representative to the high-level panel for sustainable ocean economy. His visit underscores the importance of international collaboration in addressing the pressing challenges facing our oceans and coastal communities. At Technical University of Mombasa, we recognize the ocean is centrally our identity, our livelihoods, and our future. As a coastal institution, we are committed in advancing research, innovation, and policy dialogues that contribute to sustainable ocean management. Today's engagement is a testament to that commitment. As you are aware now, our government has placed a lot of emphasis on the blue economy, and our president is in the forefront, and this is the first time that a whole division or ministry has been created on blue economy. So now it's mining together with blue economy. Dr. Russell's public lecture will be on the Ocean Panel Transformation Agenda, Coastal and Ocean-Based Solution for Climate Change, Nature Repair, and Conservation for the Well-Being of All. This public lecture comes at a critical time. The world is already grappling with climate change, biodiversity losses, and the degradation of marine ecosystems. His insights will offer us valuable perspectives on how we can harness ocean-based solutions to mitigate these challenges while ensuring economic prosperity and environmental sustainability. I encourage all of us who are here together today, our students and faculty members, to actively engage in the discussion and take advantage of this unique opportunity to exchange ideas and also to understand the issues that are prevalent not only in Australia but in Kenya, in our region, and also in the world at large. I just want to take this opportunity to reaffirm our university's commitment to working with global partners in advancing sustainable blue economy initiatives, and we look forward to meaningful and fruitful collaborations that will empower both our faculty members and our students, our researchers, coastal communities, and also the government of Kenya. I want to take this opportunity to invite Chris to invite our main speaker for today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Vice-Chancellor, and thank you to all of you for joining us this afternoon. So my name is Chris. I'm the Australian Deputy High Commissioner to Kenya, and can I just say I have been to a lot of universities in Kenya and also around the world, and I can confidently say this is one of the most beautiful that I have ever visited. I feel very lucky to be here with you this afternoon. So I am based in Nairobi. My colleague Ursula is based in Nairobi. I love visiting Mombasa. My colleague Dr. Russell Reichelt is based in Australia, and so he has flown 24 hours to get here, which is a long way. But despite that distance, the links between Kenya and Australia are closer than you might think. Our two countries have a long-term, warm and constructive partnership. This year we are celebrating 60 years of diplomatic relations, and there's much to celebrate. Our communities are closer than they have ever been. Nearly 30,000 Australian tourists visited Kenya last year. 25,000 Australian citizens have Kenyan origin. There are nearly 10,000 Kenyan students in Australian universities. And alongside those community links, our commercial relationship is in a really good spot and growing quickly. And our political leaders meet and see the world in a very similar way. We had some senior officials talks just recently on geopolitics and foreign policy, which was very warm. And on top of all of those connections, we are both proud Indian Ocean countries. And I think sometimes that can sound like meaningless trivia that we both have a border with the Indian Ocean. But it's actually, I think, really tangible and important. If we want to manage sustainable fishing in the Indian Ocean and design and enforce the rules to do that, that is a collective effort between states. If we want to manage sustainable and sensible, seabed mining, that is a collective effort between states. If we want to share information and raise funding for marine conservation, that is a collective effort between states. And so it's terrific that Australia and Kenya have dialogue on these matters and are also both members of multilateral forums like the Indian Ocean Rim Association, and that our leaders are both on the high-level panel for sustainable ocean economies. And because we've got so much to engage with and talk about on ocean matters, I'm really delighted that we have Dr. Reichelt visiting Kenya this week. As the Vice-Chancellor said, he is our Prime Minister's representative to the high-level Sustainable Ocean Economies panel. and also a world-renowned marine scientist and our leading voice on marine policy in Australia. So I'm so pleased he's able to join us and give a presentation to you this afternoon. I look forward to lots of probing questions, and thank you again for having us here today.
Happening? Okay. Just checking out the technical issue. While we're just waiting for the slides, I really think that it'll be hard to see you could probably see that, but I'm very happy for the university to keep my copy of the slides with some notes, and I can manage it myself. Self-determination. Okay, thank you very much for the welcome here. It's my great privilege to be in this university, and when I was researching what is the Technical University of Mombasa, and I read the Vice-Chancellor's background, and I read the history of the university and the values that this university has, and they resonate very strongly with me in terms of scientific excellence, inclusion of women in STEM, the openness of and the ambitions for growth of the capability of new generations of scientists, researchers in Kenya who will be changing the world, and I applaud this university. This is a talk about transformation agenda. I just got that too close, I think. The transformation agenda is something I've stolen from the Ocean Panel, but the things that I would want to emphasise is that I will say in a minute that I think the ocean is in a very dire condition and heading in not the right direction. But I would like my concluding remarks to a spoiler alert for you that I think there's every reason to have hope that you can make a difference, and that the world scientists and policymakers, business leaders, everyone, and I'd say local communities more than anyone, can all play a role, and the more we can do to build unity and partnership. I'm giving you the final pitch, so if you're called away to another appointment, you won't miss anything. But it really is that we need to build cooperation across not just scientific community, but amongst all people who want to see a sustainable ocean economy. And it's a sustainable ocean economy is a peaceful ocean, a singular thing. We have one ocean. It connects us. It gives us our oxygen. It sustains our livelihood, and it's a vital part of our life here on Earth. So I want you to know you can make a difference with individual lines of research and teaching in achieving this transformation. I've got some statistics here for you. 80% of life on Earth is in the ocean. It generates half of our oxygen and absorbs 90%, it's a bit more I think now, of global excess heat, and 25% of global carbon emissions. They roll off the tongue, but if you think what this means, it's quite dramatic. And in Australia, we are interested, and the reason our Prime Ministers have joined in the Ocean Panel, which I'll describe in a second, is that we have a very large responsibility with the world's third largest exclusive economic zone. We've actually got the largest in the world responsibility for search and rescue between Maldives and Fiji, Indonesia and the South Pole is Australia's responsibility for maritime safety and responding to sailors in trouble. It's 10% of the world's surface area. So we're a maritime trading nation as well. There's $118 billion to our economy from the ocean, with over nearly 500,000 jobs each year. And importantly, 99% of our trade by weight travels by sea. The last point is my most important one. The ocean has social and cultural meaning for all Australians. And I've only learned in the last probably 30 or 40 years just how important and unusual are the First Nations people of Australia. When I was young, there was nothing taught in our schools about the Indigenous and local people who were here since the middle of the last ice age, and the people from outside. It was largely untouched for most of that period until less than 500 years ago. And so it's an unusual place to have a living, continuous culture, which is very old, and something that I've come to be hugely respectful of, and I deeply value the local knowledge that the traditional owners bring for how our oceans work, how our nature systems work, because they are living proof of sustainability practices. I think I'll keep moving in the interests of time, but the impact of climate change really has to be a headline. It's something that we have more or less done to ourselves by selecting a kind of fuel that was probably okay when there was only a few million humans on the planet. When I was born, there were 2 billion humans on Earth in the 1950s. This year was 8.5 billion people, with a massive increase in population, and the energy demands have gone up at much the same pace in the last less than a century. And so I'm saying the world now is different. The past practices of our industrialised society can't keep continuing the way they are. So there's a strong message of change and of hope in doing that. Now the ocean panel, if you can see the map of the world with the orange dots on the screen, these are the members of the ocean panel. And the Ocean Panel was formed in 2018, and it was formed by the Norwegian Prime Minister of the day, Anna Solberg, deciding that she would like like-minded heads of state to form a group, not a treaty, it's not a decision of the United Nations. She invited those leaders personally to join a panel that would work to understand the pressure on the ocean, form ideas on how to improve the health of the ocean, and make the changes necessary. It's a global ambition, but there's about half what's called global north, global south. It's a piece of jargon, but it's a token for wealth and divide in equity between the benefits of the economy at large flow unevenly to the world. So there are people in the developing countries, there's people in Canada, Norway, some Europeans, Chile, Namibia, Ghana, Kenya, Seychelles, and into the Pacific. And it's the stats about this panel, and they really do live up to their brief, which is give their view as the leader of what they are prepared to do in government to improve the state of the ocean. But these 18 countries have committed to 100% of the economic zone being managed for sustainability. Think about that. It's a bit different to some of the other stats you'll hear, like 30% under maximum protection. It was in discussions to give to the leaders that the thought came up, why are we only managing 30%? Shouldn't it be 100% for sustainability with some areas with very special protection of high value? And that's what this panel has all committed to. The members have 42% of the global coastline, 18% of the world's fisheries, 20% of the world's shipping, and 37% of the world's exclusive economic zones. You all will know what that is, the 200-mile zones that derive from the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. I think it didn't click. Whoops. There we go. Yeah, the lines on the map for the exclusive economic zone are interesting, and Kenya has a significant area of its jurisdiction, as does Australia. But I was lucky enough to have a discussion with the professor from Singapore University, Professor Tommy Koh, who chaired the Third Commission in 1982 that settled the Law of the Sea. And he was just chatting, a cup of coffee, and I asked him, how did you manage with your getting agreement? And he said there was a mood after World War II, and increasingly through the 60s and 70s, that the scarring from multiple global conflicts was terrifying to those who thought, well, we don't want another world war over the ocean and ownership. Can't we come up with a rules-based order, a way of deciding territory in a peaceful and partnership way? And that's how the 200 nautical mile zone turned into an article in the Law of the Sea. It was about conflict avoidance and encouraging coastal states to manage their part of it in a sustainable way. So that's something that I didn't know until I met Professor Koh in a corridor. But look, achieving the panels has these broad goals, and the idea of the panel is to work together for effective protection of the ocean, sustainable production from the ocean, and prosperity done equitably. That goes well for people, nature, and the economy. So these, after about 1 year, there was a climate statement, and then in 2019, the panel members met several times, and there was a drafted document, and its title is in a little URL at the bottom of that screen on oceanpanel.org/the-agenda, and you can find that diagram on their website. It's freely available. But you can see these, we worked on what are the action areas that need to be looked at, and we looked at things that improve the health of the ocean. We were advising on can you have a wealthy, productive ocean. You can't have healthy people in most societies without a healthy, productive ocean. And after a few months, there was a decision to say, well, who's going to pay for all this? And so there was an agreement that sustainable, affordable finance across different countries and regions needed to be worked out, because it costs. Transformational change in an economy takes money and commitment and a lot of other things. We also were advising into the panel the need for solid scientific knowledge, and also inclusion of cultural knowledge and traditional and local community knowledge. And so the idea was that in making decisions, they need to be accepted by the people, whether they are in whichever country they're in. And so the idea of ocean knowledge, those two words cover a broad field, and the need for the scientific value, and I repeat, cultural, social, and could be knowledge of economies from that point of view, or how the physical and biological systems operate, to improve their lot more people need to understand those things. It's these days the jargon word is called ocean literacy. And I was very surprised to realise that most of the 25 million people in Australia live within about 80 kilometres of the coastline, but I would say only a fraction of them really understand what drives an ocean, the ocean ecosystem, how their future is tied to the health of the ocean. And so it's, to me, having we call these the 5 pillars of a sustainable ocean economy, because you need them all to work. And ocean equity was a pillar that wasn't there until very close to the finalising the document, when a Kenyan colleague from their office pulled some of us aside in the discussion and said, Russell, this is all very fancy, this is good you're doing it, but who's going to afford it? How can we make some of these changes without some equity in the prosperity that will come from the ocean? And we need a more explicit request to make the development of the Ocean Panel's agenda have another column called equity. And that means at local scale, village scale, it means between, within countries and states, between countries and globally, and it applies. It was quite a surprise when that was discussed in the roundtable. Mexico stood up and said, "Well, yeah, well, that doesn't everyone do that? We have legislation about gender equity in our coastal zone management system. We have a now, what is this? It's not their constitution, but it's essentially equity at those levels, and they have a female foreign policy agenda in Mexico." So in hearing that, it made me think there's so much we don't know about the good things that individual countries are doing. And I repeat, it's been terrific working with Kenya, and I've learned a lot about how Kenyan people see the ocean in the minds of the people I've been talking to. It's quite different to people that are the Polynesians, live and breathe the ocean. In Kenyan culture, it can be more strongly related to farming and other things that are more facing the land than the sea. So that's not judging anyone, that's saying everyone's different and we need to talk to each other and understand the differences between us. So those are the 5 pillars. They're outlined in that document. It was published in 2020, right in the middle of COVID. And once it was published, one of the things that's in it is that how are you going to deliver this? How is each country going to ensure that they deliver 100% sustainable management? And the idea was that, well, the text was added through sustainable ocean plans. So that's now becoming a common piece of jargon, that it won't happen by praying to the gods. It won't happen. It won't only happen if people understand the need for change, they understand how to be inclusive and cooperative in making the changes, that they commit to some form of sustainable ocean plan. So I'll tell you that I'll finish that line with a few comments on sustainable ocean plans. So the interesting thing about that is there's a UN Ocean Conference coming up in a few months' time in June. That's the 3rd one. The last one was the 2nd one in Portugal, and I forget, the first one might have been 2017, around there. But we haven't had a lot, but the France and Costa Rica are the hosts for this one in Nice, and coming up this year. And they have decided that why should just the Ocean Panel be sustainable? Why not every country with ocean? And so they formed it's very ambitious. I love the language saying, it's not just 100% of your economic zone. We want 100% of all economic zones being sustainable. So just when you think you're on a winner, someone bets up higher for you. But I congratulate France for their ambition. And so that is one of if you see it in writing somewhere, you'll see 100% alliance. Or if I was a French speaker, I'd say alliance. And it means working together for all countries to urge sustainability. Are we going? Thinking. I wanted to tell you, I mentioned sustainable ocean plans, and like all of the other panel members, we are working on one in Australia. And there is no formula for this. It's what works for your culture and your economy. But the idea is to achieve all of those ambitions about protect effectively, produce sustainably, and prosper equitably. And so we've begun that in Australia, and it's currently in a draft form. We haven't concluded it, but it takes the form, really, if I could say it in simple words, it's let's look at what we have in the ocean now, what management do we have, let's describe our ambition for the ocean that we want in the future. So it's classic coastal zone management, adaptive management. What are the values you have? What is threatening them or at risk? Identify the actions to take those risks away. And you'll see that called integrated coastal zone management or adaptive management. It involves value an asset, what is threatening that value, what actions and risks, and how will you know once you've implemented the actions if you've made a difference, and that you have to measure it. And actually that's the fundamental risk framework in the UNFCCC, IPCC process as well. They call theirs the heavy chain: hazard, evaluation, vulnerability and impact. So everyone has different language for these things. You can find that in the IPCC reports as well. And that's what we've done in Australia, from not me, some very talented people in the government, federal government. They've been having widespread conversations around the whole country. They've created a new group of First Nations people who would help them in the journey. They would work together and they would, there's a strong emphasis on gender equity and equity across cultures as well. We've looked at our marine industries and analysed their value to Australia. The science community has taken on it to look at the strengths and weaknesses. We have 3 levels of government, maybe like your counties and cities and things. We have our federal system, Commonwealth, our states and our local government. And we also have private tenure, so that's 4 layers. So all levels of government, it includes, we include in our plan the need for conservation movements and NGOs to be involved, and all users of the ocean. So our partners in trade, there can be recreational use. It's very popular for people in Australia, love going swimming and sailing and boating. So it's trying to be very inclusive. After the first year, the draft is in and it's awaiting our election now, and there'll be consideration after that by the incoming government of where they'll go to next. So if I think I'll have to get closer. The 4 things, that's why you need to get this off the web. The priority areas will be sustainable industry, especially fisheries, land use and clean waterways, climate action in maritime industries, decarbonising large vessels, changing fuels in ships, and also generating energy from the ocean through wind farms. And we don't have as much opportunity for hydro as Kenya does, but Tasmania does, and it's making good use of that. But and then protect and restore. That one's the one on the right near the word prosperities. The government has put in place the concept of governments alone can't do this. We need private landholders, we need industries to have a stake in what we're calling the nature repair market. So, and it's not about offsets and paying to pollute and things like that. It's about trying to get all sectors of the economy to get involved. So it isn't just a top-down government grant. We want the insurance industries to join in with de-risking their future investments under climate change. We want the capital markets, which make loans to developers, and to blue bonds, which make essentially government loans. and diversify where the money's coming from to do this work. And the enablers are collaboration, sustainable finance, improving the knowledge systems we have to support the decision making, and of course living out the ambition for equity and inclusion as an enabler. So I think the last remarks would be about, there's a forthcoming conference in Nice, France and Costa Rica I mentioned. The objectives in Nice will be successful conclusion of its jargon words, multilateral processes linked to the ocean. For that I would say we're talking Sustainable Development Goals and other commitments that have been made by the United Nations system, and then mobilising the funding to achieve especially the Sustainable Development Goal 14 and support the blue economy. If you hear that word, by the way, blue economy, it'll mean something different wherever you are. In Australia, we take it as, I mentioned, maritime transport, decarbonising and improving safety, reducing pollution, reducing land runoff, blue carbon, protection of seagrasses and mangroves as vital for not just burying carbon, which is extremely important, but also as a defence for coastal systems against extreme weather, storm surge, and also a hotspot of biodiversity. In our Great Barrier Reef Marine Park, there's over 70 species of fish that grow big on the outer reefs who would not be there were it not for the mangroves and seagrasses. So we're talking about all the different actors that you need to do to, and we need to strengthen the scientific understanding of those and the cultural understanding. That, what practices do our Indigenous communities use to have lived sustainably for so long? And they do have a strong culture of using what's sufficient and maintaining the generative. The new buzzword is regenerative in all sense of the word. I heard it for the first time used recently for tourism, about coastal tourism. And the way they said it was, well, Russell, we want regenerative tourism, and it's not just regenerative in not causing problems, it's regenerate the tourist as well. Tourists don't want to go and visit somewhere where they're destroying nature, the villagers hate them. Some cruise ships and things have some of that reputation in some parts of the world. The new market is for tourists that will feel regenerated if they go to a healthy place, and when they're there, they either donate to that place or they actually volunteer in restoration work. So, quick rundown on our priorities. I think I've mentioned most of those. Some I haven't mentioned is illegal, unregulated and unreported fishing. I've learned in the first day and a half of my visit to Kenya that it's a problem here. It's a problem in many parts of the world, and it's not easy to fix those problems when there are strong elements of survival and livelihoods in some cases. So this is a dilemma, but it's not one we should shy away from. We need to repair the ability of people under pressure to restore their natural resources, and illegal fishing is not a good thing. I think that's one area that is the last area is the financing area. And I mentioned that one of the bigger exercises that will happen at UNOC is a major conversation between essentially the different sources of funding, private and public, and globally, and reaching agreements on how they can be included in the processes and have finance that's scalable. So if you're trying to restore all of the mangroves lost in the mouth of the Amazon, you've got to start somewhere. And that usually means different funding sources for different scales. And a thing called the Mangrove Breakthrough, which is active in East Africa, and the Amazon, is an example of that, where people think through how to go from village to region to estuary to larger parts of the ecosystem. And each time they do it, there'll be more people involved, more active engagement, but also the amount of money goes up and that pathway needs to be built into the analysis. So I think it's an exciting time for repair of nature. People who have the ability and access are working on programs to make funding available. I know from talking to my colleagues and the leaders at home that they were very pleased to hear of the work of our High Commission engaging Kenya in many of these sorts of things, and I'm very pleased to be here with the help of our Foreign Affairs Department and Chris from our High Commission, because I won't go, there's more about local communities, but I'll end with a comment that I started at the beginning as a spoiler, that the value in working between Australia and Kenya is that we share a whole lot of values. We have different circumstances and different neighbours in our region and different challenges. But to quote our Foreign Minister Penny Wong, we need, to achieve these goals, we need regional stability, we need peace, we need cooperation, we need mutual respect and building partnerships. And building partnerships that are resilient can only be done with patience and respect, because partners will disagree on issues. If the partnership is strong, it will survive that, and you will work together to solve the problem, not become enemies. So that was Minister Wong's comment about overall we don't need more conflict in the ocean, we need more peace, more stability, more partnership and more cooperation. And I'm very proud to say that I was asked to emphasise that in the Kenya-Australia relationship. I think we can do it. Thank you. Do we have time for questions here? What's the Vice-Chancellor? I'm not sure of people's schedules.
Do you have any questions? Oh.
Let us first thank Dr. Russell. I'm close to this. Let's thank Dr. Russell for the very, very informative presentation and this lecture. Indeed, I hope all of you were following what he was talking about, the issues of sustainability of our oceans, and what he was trying to compare with the initiatives that have taken place in Australia. So we will now call upon each one of you to...
Oh, that's probably, you were telling me to get out of it.
Okay. So I think first we will we'll have questions, and then we will also applaud him after he has received the questions, and it will be now question and answer sessions. So for those of you who have any questions, we will ask this side, this row, and another row, and so on and so forth. So depending on who has a question, we will take the first 1, 2, 3 questions. We will take the first 3 questions, and then we will answer, and then later on we will ask some more questions. Any questions? Yes? Oh, there are many. This side, let me start this way. No questions here? Okay. So that's number 1, the first question. Number 2, 3. I think let's take one from the ladies there. You have a question? Yes. So we'll take first 4.
Thank you so much, Dr. Russell, for the wonderful presentation. I have some 2 questions here. And first of all, I will start by acknowledging the fact that 25% of carbon dioxide is absorbed by our oceans. And my question is, if 25% can be absorbed by our ocean, can we have a mechanism, or are you working towards a mechanism of increasing the same? And if it is possible, what will be the general effect of having the same, of increasing the rate of carbon dioxide absorption via the ocean? Because carbon dioxide is the main threat to climate change. And then the second question, now that goes to the ocean panel. You mentioned that 18 countries are part of the ocean panels, and part of the 18 countries, you mentioned some statistics. You said these 18 countries. Yes? Okay, thank you. I hope now I'm clear. Okay, thank you. So I was asking if carbon dioxide absorption, 25% of carbon dioxide is absorbed by our oceans. Can we have mechanisms to increase the same rate, to increase the rate of absorption of carbon dioxide by the ocean? And if we do so, what can be the predicted effects to our ocean ecosystem? And yeah. And then the second question was about the ocean ocean panel, and you mentioned that 18 countries are part of the same, and in your statistics you said 42% of the ocean coastline is contributed by these countries, and 18% of world fisheries is contributed by the same countries. But in your solutions you are discussing about 100% ocean solutions. So my question is, are 18 countries enough to deliver these 100% solutions? Thank you.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Is that on? Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Look, I heard the question as, correct me, shake your head if I'm wrong, can we increase the flow of carbon absorption in the ocean into the seafloor, and what would be the effects? Look, I'm not a deep knowledge expert in this. I read the same Scientific American articles, probably some of them in the room. But it's a bit, to me, enforcing a carbon CDR removal, it may work by someone there. It might well work. I'll be quiet. Get which chemical, but it essentially would would stop the falling in pH. In other words, stop it becoming more acidic. The concerns that I have is I haven't seen a flow of literature that is equally weighted in terms of the risks and impacts of doing it that way. And you know, mechanically removing carbon by some chemical process and storing it underground or where it's out of reach does, you know, and accelerating, say, mangrove systems, and there's other ways that I would be less worried about the risks, because there's so many co-benefits from doing it. And I wish I knew more, but I'm yet to be convinced that the risk analyses of all the available methods that work in a test tube, will they work in an ocean, and will they cause other irreversible change that we regret later? So I'm reflecting my ignorance of the detail of that. If I was speaking broadly, I would say we need to be very careful. It's a bit like that with the resolutions on deep sea mining. It would be wrong to think that the floor of the ocean is devoid of life and we could just dig it up. It's a complete ecosystem, largely independent, with different energy cycles. And so I think the wording we concluded was in our statement about deep sea mining, for instance, would be similar to the wording I would use for CDR with methods at their current state of knowledge. So be careful, and don't do it without understanding what it is you're doing. So it's a precautionary principle is another way of saying it, and that applies in the decarbonising agenda. The second part was about, is 18 countries enough? No. If all countries adopted sustainability and followed those decarbonising agendas, it would still not be enough. And the only treaty I'm aware of that is addressing the areas beyond jurisdictions is the Biodiversity Beyond Jurisdictions, BBNJ, national jurisdictions. So there's the 100% Alliance is a call to do everything in your power, in your area of jurisdiction. It won't of itself solve the bigger problem, which, and the real answer to that is rapidly, it was all in the COP21 in 2015, essentially, radically reduce carbon emissions, radically accelerate low emission or zero emission methods of providing energy. And if I was writing now, I would have emphasised the issue of equity across the spread of economies and cultures and people who depend, who don't have necessarily the technology or the finances to do those emission reductions. So I think and that's, since that was written, we've seen the Blue Climate Fund, we're seeing the bigger system acknowledge it, but I feel like we're only just starting. You know, I feel like we have to really radically transform our energy systems and our food systems, but in a way that conserves our biodiversity and our cultures and well-being that depends on a healthy ocean.
There was a hand here.
Okay, thank you. I'm Stanley Emilio, studying marine engineering student here at Technical University of Mombasa, and also the faculty representative from the Institute of Maritime and Seafaring Studies. Now, I can say I've been privileged as one of the students who got an opportunity to be in a research vessel and at least see how there are ways that are being used to be able to conserve the oceans. But my question is that there are many young... Okay, sorry. Yes, I'm saying there are many young students who are passionate about ocean conservation, but they lack access to these research opportunities. So how can students like from Technical University of Mombasa gain access to these research opportunities? And my other question is that through this high-level panel for sustainable ocean development, ocean economy to drive local research through this high-level research ocean sustainable economy, how can institutions like Technical University of Mombasa be able to drive local research initiatives? And how can universities in African sector be involved, or can there be a partnership between the Australian government and the Kenyan government to enable that? Thank you.
Okay, good question. What I think I heard was how can students at the technical university and like this one find a pathway to learn about these things and contribute to the solutions in an active way? And I think there's a few threads that need to be followed at once here. There needs to be an increasing drive from all countries with quality institutions like TUM to encourage the engagement of students in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And I mentioned women in STEM before, but it goes for everybody. So improve technical capability and to encourage the recognition that younger people, and by that I just mean anyone happens to be slightly younger than me. Yes, I'm joking. Yeah, I think we all have to realise that there needs to be ocean literacy by many more people, and whether you're a student in early training in a university, at that stage you already have a lot more knowledge than most people from your first year or two. And then I think it behoves teachers, students, and people that take the knowledge systems into the public domain. We all need to see if we can find ways to talk about our work, and to be the thing that's probably I wouldn't have been brave enough to do when I was 21 years old or something, is to have the confidence to talk about what I've learned already and find ways to amplify the messages that you're already learning, and I think that's another seminar in that one. But I think the step one is to encourage students to take on the fields and there'll be many different fields across science, technology, engineering, maths, cultural knowledge, social, economic stuff. So it doesn't matter, look for the areas where you can apply that to the circumstance of the ocean economy. So learn about the ocean economy, your own country's ocean economy and the region's ocean economy, and I think by doing that you will then find opportunities, perhaps engaging outside of Kenya in programs. It's more easy to do now than ever was with internet and some travel, and I just think that it's a matter of starting the journey. And then we already have a very ambitious university and Vice-Chancellor and technical staff, Dr. Mariam. So there's technical, I mean leaders. I mean leaders like Dr. Mariam. Yeah, I think I'm just saying you've got to start somewhere and take the first step, and a revolution will follow.
There was another question here from a lady. It was you? Are you sure?
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Regan Karaoke Dhali. I'm second year doing a BSc in mechanical engineering. Is it better? Okay. Now, the transformation a big name. Now, my question to you today, Dr. Russell, is that many global sustainability agendas struggle with real on-the-ground implementation. Now, how can students and young professionals in countries like Kenya leverage technology such as artificial intelligence, data analytics, or marine sensors to actively contribute to the ocean panel's transformations agenda in a way that ensures measurable impact than just mere awareness?
I'll just correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard you say that how can students and early academics like yourself contribute to these technical areas that will lead to changes in fisheries, changes in environmental. Did I hear you right? Oh, and using new tech, of course.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because the technology that's available now is radically better than it was a decade ago, and unrecognisable by when I started in first year university. So it's changing rapidly, and I'm as enthusiastic now of grabbing the new tools and using them. I mean, you look at the Argo floats that are drifting around measuring the deep ocean's currents, you know, the conveyor belt and other things. They were designed 25 plus years ago, and there's a lot of them out there, and that's why we know that some of these deep ocean currents are slowing down or they're changing in some way. If you think now, there are floats that will recharge by pressure difference going up and down in the ocean. There's technology for rapid assimilation of visual data. We saw some when was it, in one of the talks about AI interpretation of AVHRR and radar imagery from space, which enables you to track vessels now, even if they've got their ID turned off, you know, their recognition. And so that's happening now. What I would like to see is it becomes much more available to teaching institutions and students who can use it straight away, not wait till they're a professor in Stanford. You know, it should be in use now, and there should be programs, and some of the big philanthropists would support this. I mean, I know Microsoft's original ambition was to have a computer on everyone's desk because they thought it would be good back 40 years ago. We need the ocean literacy movement, and we need the early adopters to be rewarded and actually make failure a badge of honour because you've tried something. I mean, I know of some grants being made soon in East Africa to do with restoration, and one of the rules of the grant was there is nothing shameful about trying something and it not working. The only problem is if you try something and don't learn from it and do differently. So, and I think there is a saying about how do you manage chaotic systems as a complexity theory. A simple system, you make a lever, you pull it and something happens. A complicated system, you make many levers and pull the right ones. But a chaotic system could fail catastrophically with one wrong move. And the general management philosophy for that is take small, safe-to-fail steps as you go. But that should be happening in laboratories and think tanks and class discussions about, has anyone thought about AI taking the information on the distribution of illegal vessels or black vessels, you know, the ones that have turned off their reporting, and then linking that to sales in distribution of illegitimate, what do you call it, transparency in the chain of production in the ocean. That was something that came up in early discussions in the panel. I think I just picked a couple that I was thinking, why don't we have Argo floats now that cost $2 to make, report to a satellite, and we get a daily report on the state of the ocean, including surface pollution, wind-driven currents, likelihoods of tornadoes. I think use your imagination, and the way great inventions are made is, what about A and B together instead of doing them separately, and do them all at once and do them 1,000 times faster? So that I'm with you. That's the sort of thing that needs to be coming, and the ideas will come from people past college but before graduation. I mean, that's how computers got started in the micro world. So yeah, don't be afraid to have a go with your imagination and read avidly about what's coming over the horizon with technologies and methods of measuring. And just closing on that, I did want to say something in my talk about the importance of measuring. You may have heard of the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosure. It's called TCFD, and it's a financial thing where you're supposed to declare if you have a carbon loading in your production chain. And that's actually having an impact on investment globally now, and we have a task force on nature-related financial disclosure. So some of the ideas from the biologists are getting into the economic system, and there was an Australian on the design of the climate disclosure, who was from BHP, an Australian woman, and she said the first 18 months were haggling over finding common language so we can all communicate. And so ocean literacy is an act of communication and trying to find meaningful communication. So I've slipped between the two because innovation and creativity then needs implementation, and you need to be good communicators for that, and convincing of financiers. Thanks for the question. I'll see you on the front page of Time magazine.
Okay, one more question from, yes, please.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Shem Carlos, a master's student, Fisheries and Aquaculture, at the great Technical University of Mombasa. My question is, from the start, I heard from Prof mentioning the capacities, the leadership capacities you've been in Australia, and I've read some document here. I think it was a publication on 23rd March last month. I think it was last month on The Guardian, published by the author Morton. It was talking about how the ocean warming affecting the Ningulu reef in Australia, and how it's really affecting the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. And in matters related to climate change, as you said during the presentation, it's not a one country, a one nation thing. We need different countries to fight this climate change issue. So as a partner country, a friend country, that is Australia to Kenya. And we know Australia is a developed country, partnering with Kenya, a developing country. How are you trying, because you've been in these leadership capacities, I know you know much concerning this, how is Australia really trying the initiatives? It's trying to help ensure that the partner country, that is Kenya, helping in curbing these climate change issues. Is there any ways that it's trying? Because I saw during the last moments of the presentation, you only said about respecting each other, about how we need to cooperate, but you didn't really put up clearly on how Australia is trying to help Kenya curb these climate change issues. Thank you.
Can I just check, your very short summary is how can Australia help Kenya? But I missed the, in all respects, in terms of tackling the climate change together, I think. Yeah, okay. Look, the circumstances of all countries differs. We have a different history, strangely related as Commonwealth British colonies, but very diverse cultural inhabitants over centuries before. And we also have different energy. I'm very admiring of the high use of renewables and hydro in Kenya, and I think the government of Australia, it comes and goes in cycles of election. We've had 10, 15 years ago a very ambitious government looking at carbon taxing. We've got ambition now that we didn't have 5 years ago, and so in a sense, there's a general feeling that will be tested in elections, and governments will have different policies. But overall, the prospect of reducing emissions by some means or another, people are arguing about the means now to do that, with nuclear power and other things. Well, what's the best way to do it? That's probably a healthy debate, as long as the outcome is nature positive and carbon, getting rid of carbon. There might be more than one way to do that. How does Australia help? Well, for one thing, we have a very competent High Commission here, and my colleague is sitting next to me. But more importantly, there needs to be high rates of communication between students and staff of TUM with areas that where maybe a partnership with another centre of excellence within a university, because to partner a university is a big thing. You're a big organisation. Australian National Uni is big. We've got some small universities, but if you, the good thing is by following the literature, it quickly becomes obvious through who's being cited and who's causing a stir, who's shaking up the science community, where ideas are being generated, and in your own studies and teachings, if you're a teacher, where you would like to see some cooperation. The trouble, it's a long answer because it needs to come from agreement amongst leadership and foreign policy and partnership policy. There is a strong feeling now from our leadership that we have not done enough for the Indian Ocean side of our continent, and that you can expect to see that playing out more in foreign policy. But also, there might be avenues for institutions like TUM on specific issues to help facilitate or find universities that can provide the bridge being built from Australia side as well. So I have to think about how would I do that if I was the Vice-Chancellor of, or the Chair of the Vice-Chancellor's Committee, or a Science Minister or whatever, because it's not trivial, but I know it can be done because I've seen terrific partnerships across the Pacific Ocean. Some into East Africa were very strong when the International Coral Reef Initiative began with David Obura and people like that. So there's been centres of excellence with good exchange with Kenya over the decades I've been involved. And I think find those connections, and your academic leaders can help with that if you're a student, because I mean, I met Dr. Mariam through a LinkedIn last week because I knew she would be here and welcoming us. The tools we have to form partnerships now are increasing, but the machinery and the funds have to flow with it to enable visits and exchanges of staff. So yeah, sorry to be long-winded, but it's not a simple question. It's a good question. We'll work on it.
Good afternoon. My name is Said Mwaguni. I'm a professor of environmental science in this university. And I've been dealing with water and ocean matters for the last 40 years of my life. I've been listening to you very, very keenly, and I don't have questions to ask, but just seeking for some clarifications. The first one, I thought your presentation, Ocean Plan, Ocean Solutions, does it derive from Agenda 21? Does it derive from Agenda 21 of the UN Conference on Environment and Development? Secondly, I've heard you also talk about world rules-based order so that we can do activities in the oceans in peace. Does this world rules-based order the same as international law? Number 3, there are many efforts going on ocean activity and ocean matters. For example, I know you talked about some similar efforts in Portugal, forthcoming ones in Nice in June this year. And we have also some taking place in the Asian subcontinent. Like there is going to be the World Conference of Oceans in Japan in November this year. Are these complementary efforts or standing alone activities? Finally, our biggest problem is usually finances in whatever we do. And you mentioned about Blue Economy Finance Forum, but you never expanded on it. Could you please expand on that? Thank you very much.
I'm sorry if I didn't respond. I must have missed the question. But I did have trouble understanding just the echoes in the room. But my colleague here knows more about Agenda 21 than I do. So why don't you lead off, Chris, and then I'll come back because there was talks of a meeting at the end of the year and the BEF, and we can speak to you about that here and afterwards too if you want.
Sure. Thank you for the question. So I'll try and tackle the first two, if I may. The guts of the presentation that Dr. Russell was making is it was a description about the high-level panel and then also Australia's sustainable ocean plans. And of course, those things are informed by the sustainable development goals and the major agendas that come out of the multilateral system. That does not mean they're necessarily derivative of that, but you need to have a educated and informed eye on what the multilateral system is producing, I think, when you're making a national plan or a plurilateral plan, like one with 18 different countries. That's my best answer for that first question. The second one, I think, I think if I understood correctly, is international law the same as the rules-based order? Is that right? A clarification. I think, I mean, we could have a whole separate conference on that question, I think. But in my own view on that would be that international law is an important component of a rules-based order. A rules-based order, an international order between nation states is, visible through international law, but also through rules that would fall short of being international law, but also really importantly through general norms and accepted practices all the way through to technical standards. So I think that there's umpteen different things that would influence, constrain, direct how nation states interact with each other. International law is a fundamentally important part of that because of the way it's developed and because of the way countries voluntarily sign up to it and because it's so technical and specific. And so for UNCLOS, for example, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, that's something Australia takes really seriously, and we think that the whole, all subscribers to it should as well. But that I wouldn't equate that to the rules-based order, which I think is a bit broader. And there's always an order, even if international law dissolved, there'd still be some kind of order, but that would just be more of a product of raw power and might between countries. And Australia's perspective is that we are all better off in a world, in a region where no country dominates all the others and no country is dominated. And I think you only get to that with an order that has international rule as part of it. Sorry, that's a bit of a foreign policy wonky answer, but that was my clarification, my own views, my clarification on that question.
Can I just check in on the query about the Blue Economy Finance Forum and UN Ocean Conference? It's on during the UN Ocean Conference coming up in 6th of June, and it's running in parallel with some other finance initiatives that are happening on a regional basis, like it's called Unlocking the Blue Pacific Prosperity, coming out of Pacific Island countries, and it's essentially organised groups of countries working together to convince the multilateral banks and the international finance system that they will make a good investment if they assist with the decarbonising agenda and the sustainability agendas for the 23 countries of the Pacific. And that's something that the panel members have agreed to promote, but not all of them are in the Pacific. But there's you've got Indonesia, Japan, Palau and Fiji, and Australia all have a Pacific face, and so does Chile and Mexico. And so yeah, the panel agrees to support regional initiatives as well. If you would like me to talk to you more, or if I could answer more specific questions, the planning for that Nice conference has been going on now for 6 to 9 months, and I'm not directly planning or part of it. I hope to attend and learn something about blue finance in the process, but the best thing I could probably do is redirect you, but it would probably have to come through your government at this stage. Would you think so, Chris? Yeah, I think so, because it's actually a UN conference, so it's not the panel, which is not a UN body. It would be operating through Kenya as a member of the United Nations and its involvement in a major UN conference. That's the sort of structure of how they're designing these programs. You understand that, Dr. Mariam? Yeah. Any other comment on the Blue Finance? No? Not needed, I was just checking. We can, happy to follow up if you want me to, but I think the best path would be straight through to your, through your Vice-Chancellor and to the government.
Okay, thank you. We have come to an end of the question and answer session. In case you have any question which you still need an answer, please forward it to our email, registrarpri@2, and we'll communicate back to you after we are getting response from Professor. Okay? Thank you very much. Okay, So we really appreciate your presence here and also our guests. It is an honor coming to Technical University of Mombasa. And it's not a starting, the end, but it's a starting of a new collaborations, research, and also linking between countries. Okay. So I'll allow our Vice-Chancellor to say something before we end up with this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the very, to me, I found that whatever was discussed, nobody was sleeping, and the engagement. So there was a lot of engagement on the topic which was discussed. So mine is just again to thank our presenter, despite the jet lag, but you are able to give a very good presentation, and you've just in the morning, you are seeing, I think you had a meeting with the CS, and then again you had to come, but it was a lively presentation. So let us appreciate him by giving him 5 factorials. 5 factorials. So can we start? So thank you very much. As you heard Professor Rahma saying, you can either engage him as he's leaving, if you still have a pertinent question that you still needed to be answered today, but otherwise we have the PRI email. Kindly, if you still want to engage, he can also share the emails. They can always engage with him, and then we'll know, you'll be able to get feedback as soon as possible. Mine is just to again remind you that as we are around here in Kenya and in the coastal region, it is our responsibility to use our oceans, because that's our main natural resource. Within the coastal region, that's our main natural resource, and of course we have the lake, which is also another natural resource. Let's use it responsibly so that we can sustain our biodiversity. We can also make sure that the issues of climate change that are affecting us, the issues of eutrophication of our water bodies, the issues of acidification, and so on and so forth, all these. And in fact, today, just today, someone came and you are seeing all these buildings which are being built. I don't want to mention who are building these buildings, but you find that they do not take care of the effluents, sewage effluents. And somebody had the audacity to come to my office and spend almost 30 minutes or 1 hour to convince me to allow him to pass the sewage water to the ocean through our institution, through our land there. So you can imagine how misinformed people are. People are constructing houses, but they don't think about, as part of their planning, how they are going to the issues of the wastewater, the effluent. How are they going to tackle that? because every flats, they're always using water effluents and so on and so forth. So the issues of wastewater, sewage water, and now how are we going to treat this water, and so on and so forth. So all these things, the issues of plastics, which Kenya has been in the forefront in banning plastics, and the main reason why we are banning plastics is, again, the way it affects our water bodies and our oceans and our fisheries. So with those, with this presentation, I think it's high time, it is the duty of each one of us. Each one of us has a role to play. And for the youngsters, the ocean is supposed to also to give us the cash crop. So we need to also look into how we can use the ocean as enterprise, and how we can utilize our sea waters, our bodies, and come up with entrepreneurial activities. So with that, I just want again to thank our visitors who are here today, and thank you all for finding time to be here and listening up to the end. You will have some refreshments. I don't know whether, they've already been given and you're finished with the refreshments. Okay. Mine is again to appreciate and thank you so much. This is part of the networking. You had the issues which was being asked regarding the funding, opportunities for funding. So you can engage them and discuss about how you can be able to get funding, what are the opportunities that are there for especially you, the students, and also our faculty members. Thank you very much. May God bless you all. I think I need to